Amin, confirm I'm audible.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Omojolade, you're welcome. Tolulope, you're welcome. Sunday, you're welcome. We have our facilitator in our midst, Emmanuel. But just a few background, though we're expecting 3 other students, that's Mayowa, Sekinat, and Aruna to join this class, but since it's been recorded, we can't really wait for that for them. I expect everyone should be in at least 5 minutes into the class without a formal apology. So no one wrote to me that they will be joining late, so we just have to start the class. We can't delay our facilitator. So I guess Aruna just joined. So what's this course all about? That details will be coming from our facilitator shortly. But for those of us that joined the Microsoft Excel class we had earlier in the year, I believe strongly that you have been able to improve on your skills on the job, and you have been able to, do much more than you have been doing before. And of course, you've seen your certificates, just as promised, that at the end of each course, you will get a certificate. And as I earlier stated, the offer changed in the course of review of the first class performance. So we just have to change our approach. So as many of our new joiners, particularly those of us here, you've been communicated on this process. And I am personally excited along with the team that you are here to learn. So SQL is a world on its own, but we'll be running this program for the next 6 weeks. And that 6 weeks is sufficient to cover everything we've communicated we are going to cover, which is enough for you as an individual to land any job that requires SQL skills. So of course, everything has an advanced stage, but we are teaching you fundamentals. And the fundamentals is enough. If you get the job today as an accountant requiring SQL, you get a job as a data analyst requiring SQL. Whatever job you get, you have a knowledge you can use to start on the job, and such that you can use to build yourself. So if you want to improve your skills in SQL, you can use this 6 weeks knowledge to dive into the more deeper aspect of the knowledge. Just like Microsoft Excel, there are some aspects of Microsoft Excel I don't know, and I've been using Excel for over 5 years, and I don't need it. That's a summary. I don't need it, and I don't think I will never need it. So, but some engineers, some people who are into architecture and all that might need to use some of those skills or functions, but I don't need it because it's not my area. So the same thing with this course. There are a lot of aspects of it that you might not need, depending on what you find yourself needing it for. But what we are going to teach you is enough. So that's why I'm emphasizing it, so you don't get distracted. 6 weeks loaded. Of course, Bramanuel is someone some of us have met from our Microsoft Excel class, and you knew how he taught you. So fortunately, he's still the one taking SQL. So sit back and ensure you are not distracted, and get your laptops ready, because this is definitely going to be practical, just as you had in Microsoft Excel class. And at the end of every classes, there would be recordings, which will be shared with you for you to review. And we also have practice. So that might not start today, but starting from next class, across the 5 weeks, you have practical, assignments and the likes that you need to do. So, but today is introduction. And please, I want you to pay attention as he explains to us the value of these skills in the business place, how you can use it to solve business problems. And he's a data analyst with years of experience. So he will speak to you based on fact and not theory. And then it launches us like a background into everything we need to have an idea. If you check the flash, you'd have seen some of the things you learned. However, I believe part of what he would teach us today is just for us to understand the scope and some of the tools that will be required. Of course, regular internet, your laptops and all that. You can't really do SQL on a mobile phone or an iPad. So you need a laptop definitely, or a notepad, something with a Windows or whatever operating system that is capable of running the software that we'll be using. So that's just a brief from my hand. So at this junction, I welcome you once again, and I'm handing over the class to our facilitator. Welcome to SQL class, which is our second class, courtesy Analytics Mastery Group, AMG. Thank you. Emmanuel, over to you. You have the floor.
All right, thank you so much. Please, can you confirm you can hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. So welcome back, everyone. Welcome back for those who joined from the Microsoft Excel class. Thank you for coming back again, and it's so good to have you. And we thank God that kept us to this time. But please, can you just give me the permission to share? So, and for those new people, Abimbala is new. You're welcome to class today. And Amil, it's good to see Amil, Tolu, and Sunday. So, welcome, Abimbala.
I'm making you a call so you can share some.
All right. So, we are here, and for those who, I hope you had a great time with Excel, and you are not just coming. So give me some time. So I hope you're not just you've not dumped Excel, and you're spending time to practice, get better, and develop your mastery skills in Excel. So Excel is something you continually use and get better at. So we'll move on to SQL today. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you so much. So we'll move on to SQL today, and so I'm very sure many of you, if you have been in the data analyst world, you must have heard of SQL, or you must have heard people mention SQL. And if you've not had, it's just one of the tools you need in the data analysis world. So what is SQL? And the first thing I would just do is break it down. Why is it necessary? What is the point? Why is I think SQL is the top skills apart from Excel, which is more like in the data world, everybody should know. SQL is still more like the high demand skills in any form of analyst you want to get, in any form of data analyst work, even data scientists also require SQL. Because why? Majority of the times, what you see in Excel, data you see in Excel, many companies don't keep their data in Excel. They keep their data in the cloud. So how do you pull up this data in the cloud? How do you make use of it? How do you analyze this data? That's where SQL comes in. SQL is more like the middleman that helps you retrieve data from the cloud, or from whatever you store your data. Majority of the companies store their data in the cloud. So from wherever you want to, you store your data. SQL is more like the tools you use to query those data, get those data from the cloud, so that you can either analyze the data, or you can even showcase. An example is that when you log into your website, you put in your password and you put in your username, and immediately you put in those two information, you press login and you'll get logged in. So the question you ask yourself is, where is those data stored? If you put in the wrong password, you won't get logged in. So where is those data stored? Those data are stored on the cloud. So how did that login button you just pressed, how did it get you inside? Is what happened at the back end is SQL. So SQL would query that, oh, this person has put in the name and the password. So, and I can check, SQL will not check the back end. Is this name and password the same thing? If it's yes, then it lets you log in. You can see that there's so much power to it, not just for analysis, also for people who even do website application, web developers. They must learn SQL, but in more advanced way, or there's something they call the NoSQL, but we'll get there. So I'm just trying to explain to you why SQL is a top-end skills needed in the data world. So, and today we will not be going into too much because I expect that from next week it will be a hands-on class. I don't expect that you want to learn SQL and you are just on your phone listening. No, there's absolutely nothing you will learn with just listening. You have to do hands-on. So I would instruct you on how to install Microsoft SQL on your system. Because I'm using a Mac, I will not go through the Mac process. Is actually a long process. So I'll send you the link on after the end of today's class, the link on how to download Microsoft SQL on your Windows system. So what I've just said, SQL is also called SQL. SQL, this SQL, yeah. SQL is also called SQL or a common language interface. This is the language we can use to communicate with RDBMS. So RDBMS is called Relational Database Management System. So what is a database? Let me just start from there. A database is more like a place where you store something, database where something is being stored. So an Excel, you can take your Excel file. Probably you have an Excel file, and I'll be using Excel because Excel is, I'm very sure everyone here is used to Excel. So I'll be using Excel to explain some of these things so that you can really understand from the knowledge you have before and what you don't have. So bringing them together. So I'll be using Excel to explain some of those things. So you can take a database is somewhere where you just store something. Is like a container where you store something inside. So when you call it, what a relational database means is that the database is what you store inside the database. They are connected. That's what it's called relational, which means that if a company has a database, in that database they have the customer details table. They have the customer details. I'm still going to use Excel to explain these things. I just want you to listen so that when I'm explaining, you understand. So I said the database is a place where you can store anything. And in this context, we are talking about storing data. So you're storing information, you're storing a table. So inside the database, you store a table. So one table can contain the customer information. Another table can contain the transaction the customer did. Another table can contain the order information. So you can have different tables like that, but those tables are connected in that one table is the customer information, another table is the transaction the customer made. So those tables are connected. So how do you connect this table? Probably you have something they call an index. So you say customer one is number one. And if I go on this table, customer one, which is an example, is let's say customer on one table, customer one is Tolu. So when I go to the other table, I know that even though I don't have Tolu's name here, anywhere I see one is referring to Tolu's transaction. Or I go to the other table, anywhere I see one, index one, it's referring to Tolu's order. So it means that the three tables are connected. It's still talking about the same person. The three tables are connected. So that's why it's called a relational database. Relational database just means that every data you put into a relational database are connected. So I talked about web development the last time. So web development don't work with relational database. They work with NoSQL. NoSQL is, as you go on in advance, you start hearing NoSQL. NoSQL is not relational. It means that the data inside the database are not connected at all. So that's what it's called NoSQL. It's not a relation. It's called a non-relational database. But in data analysis, major work would be in relational database management system, and you must understand that relational database system is the interface we use to relate with this database. Like I told, database is where you store. So if I want to retrieve information from my database, I will need a language. That's where SQL comes in. But there are different forms of languages. There are different forms of, let me say, company that offers different forms of SQL language. So SQL is one. So let me just explain in layman terms. Let me say that like a phone brand. A phone is a phone, but there's iPhone, which is a brand. There is Nokia, there's Infinix. So there are different forms of relational database. One is PostgreSQL, you can say Microsoft, MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle. So these guys are just like the middle guy that gives you an interface for you to query your data. It might look theory now. We'll get into the practical part. Just follow me. So these guys, everything you're going to be writing in this relational database, the PostgreSQL, the Microsoft SQL, they are more like the same thing, but different forms of our relational database management system. They have more like different, just little bit of different in syntax. So for this training, we'll be using SQL Server. SQL Server is the Microsoft own. MySQL is, I think MySQL is also Oracle. So Oracle owns MySQL, and PostgreSQL is also owned by someone. So, but SQL Server is owned by Microsoft, and that's what we'll be using in this class. So these are the forms of sublanguages in SQL. And we will be taking each of this in the next 5 weeks. Today, we started today. We'll be explaining some of these things, and we'll be going more deeper. So the reason why I started this theory is to show you that whatever company you want to work with as an analyst, majority of the time, you don't keep their data as an Excel file because their data is so much. An example is a bank. A bank can have like 200 transactions in a day. You don't expect to keep all those transactions inside an Excel file. So if you don't, so you are limited. If you just have understanding of Excel, you can't be an analyst in that bank because of their data is in the cloud, is stored in a database. So, and if you want to analyze for those, if you're a data analyst for that kind of bank, you will need an understanding of SQL for you to be able to retrieve the data from the database and analyze. So you can see where SQL is the big deal in data analysis. You can have small companies that still use Excel, but majority of companies don't keep their data in a local storage, like your system or something like that, or like in a system. No, they keep it in the cloud. And the way to retrieve those information is using SQL to retrieve those information. And there are different kinds of management system. That's where we have this Microsoft SQL, Microsoft Server, and the rest. So I hope you understand the logic behind SQL. That's just to explain why SQL is in high demand, and why whatever you want to do as an analyst, data scientist, data analysis, or anything, you must know SQL. You must at least know the basic of SQL. I was saying that SQL is easy to know, but it's very hard to master. So that's why I'm saying that the first ground you are going to be doing is going to be simple. It will look very simple. But when you start getting into the hard part, that's where it is like anything in life. If you want to master any skills, as you go higher, it gets more difficult. So, but if you can understand if you have a good foundation, if you can understand the foundation, you would not have issues. You will just build, like I told you in Microsoft Excel when we were saying that. If you can understand the fundamentals, the best thing you just build on those fundamentals, then before you know, you're an expert in SQL. SQL don't have ending learning. You continue learn. But building the foundation is very, very, very key. And for everything you want to do, and if you just joined this class today and you're wondering, should I learn SQL, or I don't even know how it goes, I don't understand, I'm new, I don't know how to use it, I think this is the best place to be. And I would encourage you to just maximize the 50% discounts or something. It's actually too cheap, actually. I can state that it's too cheap. And what you're going to get in this class, ask for those who are in the Microsoft Excel, you guys just got a jackpot, a free quote unquote a free class, because take your phone now, Google data analysis training, and the least you are going to see is 250K or 300K. And even at that, they're going to just take you for the highest you can see for any training is just 3 months. And those 3 months are just weekends. So we have 4 weekends in 1 month. So you're just going to be going for 4 times 3, 12 classes, basically. So like, let's say just 12, and those 12 classes, they expect you will learn Excel, you will learn SQL, you will learn some of this. You can't do those, you can't learn those things in those period of time. So this avenue you have we've almost used 9 weeks, I'm not using another 6 weeks to learn skills. I hope you don't just think, I hope you maximize it. And if you are new, I hope you just try make the payment for 50% discount and push yourself to learn SQL. if you learn SQL, you can just Google now. I might like working with the facts. Take your phone, Google data analysis job description. And if you don't see SQL there, because these guys store their data in cloud, and they need, if you want to analyze any of their data, you need an experience of SQL to take the data out from the cloud and analyze. All right, so let's move on. I said I was going to use Excel to explain some of these things I explained here, and I'll stop sharing this screen and I'll share an Excel interface to just explain. So let me see if I can share to. Okay, you can see two of my screen, right? I'm switching between two screens. You can see SQL screen and Excel interface. I need to confirm that. Can you see the two screens? Can someone confirm that?
Yeah, it's both are from my hand.
Okay, yes, good, thank you. So now look at this Excel. This is something new we've talked about, and for those who don't know anything about Excel, you can always ask for a discount for some of our courses, some of the courses we did the last few weeks. So this is an Excel interface. So I'm going to use Excel to explain SQL to you, because I'm assuming everybody knows Excel. So this is a data itself. This is stored in Excel. This is stored in my own local disk here. But if this was a company, they don't store in this local disk, they store it online, like I've explained. So I can easily retrieve this one. Just looking at this data, I can analyze this data here. I can just do an analysis, do a pivot table, and just analyze this data here. If this data was in the cloud, I can't analyze it because I don't even know I don't know how to bring the data out and let me see. And then I don't know I will need to retrieve the data from the internet and analyze it. So you can see where the difference is. Okay, let me open I'm going to open I said we're going to be using a Microsoft SQL Server in this class. So let me just open my SQL Server, and I'm going to send a link on how you can download in your own local disk, your system. Okay, SQL and this. All right, so this is what I wanted to share. This is Microsoft SQL Server. Like I said, they are different from a company that offer this relational database, which means that is what you use to retrieve the information from the cloud for any company you're working with. So they have the information in their cloud. So what do you use to retrieve it? You use any relational database. And we said there's MySQL and there's SQL Server. So I use SQL Server. I think I'm more comfortable with the Microsoft stuff. So I use SQL Server. Now, looking at this, I'm not going to teach anything today. I'm just going to teach the basics, but I want to show you how it looks like in Excel, using Excel to explain SQL. All right. So let me show you an Excel. Okay, so this is an Excel. This is like, this is a column, this columns, and this column represents, these columns, they represent attributes of, I explained this when I was teaching it. This is an attribute. So this is a record. A role is a record, like saying that, okay, this customer, this is a record of this customer, this customer, this is a record of this customer. So let's move on to, let's assume we want to turn this file here, this one here, we want to save it in the cloud. We want to save this information in the cloud. Let's go to SQL Server. So this is let me just show you, let me just take you to a brief example of SQL, of the Microsoft SQL interface. So you can see database here. So like I said, database is like a container. I can see it's like this is like a folder, like a container. These are databases here. So for every database we will have here, this is one database, this is another database, this is another database, this is another database. So you can see something like a container here. It's showing you that in this, they are different from the 1, 2, 3, 4 database here. So inside each database, there's something they call, there are tables. Inside each database, there are tables. So in those tables, okay, let me just stop at their tables. I don't want to, I think I'm getting too much theoretical, but what you must understand is a database. Inside a database, there are tables. The tables are stored inside a schema. Just take it a step by time. I want you to understand the basics. And before we go into most of the trainings you see concerning SQL, they're just going to select but you must understand what is the brain behind it before you just go into just learning the syntaxes. No. So inside the database, there's something they call the schema. The schema contains where the table is. Look at this folder here. Inside this is a database. This master is a database. So there's a schema. The schema contains the table. So this is a table here. All these ones you are seeing here, they are tables. So the schema is like a container. There's a database, there's a schema, it's step by step. This is a database, there's a schema. The schema contains the table. All right. So we want to, let's take this out. This is not what we are doing. Let me just take this out. So now we want to get into the nitty-gritty of SQL, where let's assume we are not a company. We want to create our own data. We want to transfer, like example, we are a company, we have our data in Microsoft. We have these are our data here. As a company, these are our data here. So we want to convert these are our data. We want to transfer it to the cloud. We want to take it inside a database in the cloud. So how do we convert these our data here that we have in Excel to the cloud? Using SQL. I talked about we can retrieve from the cloud. This example, like a company has their data in the cloud, we can use SQL to retrieve it. At the same time, we can use SQL also to save data in the cloud if our database is stored in the cloud. So I'm just using cloud as an example. Your database can be stored in your own local system. This one here, what you're seeing here is stored in my local disk. This is local, you can see local host here. So it's not stored in the cloud, it's stored on my system. So like an example is a company wants to transfer all their data load. They're saying, okay, we have been using Excel for some time now. We want to get everything into the cloud using SQL. So that is the first of language you're going to. The first of language is data definition language, create, alter, drop. So these ones are used to create a new table. You're creating a new table, or you're creating a new schema, or you're creating a new database. The step is database, schema, table. Database is a container that contains everything. Then you create a schema. A schema contains all the old tables. So inside the database, you can have 20 tables. You can have 20 tables. The old tables inside that database would be inside the schema. Let's get to it. So this is a schema. Look at the schema here. It contains different tables. These are tables here. These are tables here. So let's create. Now we want to, the first thing we are doing is data definition language, create, alter, and drop. That's what we want to work with now. That's what we want to create a table. We want to transfer this Excel sheet into the cloud so that we can query it. When I show you how to install data, when I show you how to install SQL Server on your machine, on your computer, I will show you how you can easily just import you click on the Excel file and it will import it into SQL. But I want to show you how, if you don't want to do that, you can create it yourself. And that is the first language you must learn. You must learn the first language you must learn is the data definition language. That's the DDL, which is the create, alter, and drop. So let's start. Let's kick start so we don't waste too much of our time. Come in. So I'm coming. This is my Okay, this Zoom. Let me just reduce this stuff. My Zoom stuff is covering. Let me enter. Okay, yeah, I can now see it now. So now, what is the process? What is the process of starting and creating anything? So the first thing we will do anytime you want to create a new table inside the database, so we'll be using this database, this master database. So if you install your own SQL server, you will have a master database. You can create your own database, a new database, but we'll be using the master database. So inside the master database, we'll create a schema. Inside the schema, then we create a table. So let's kickstart. So the first we will start with create. So like anything, the word create is like you want to start new something, you want to create something. Create, then you create table. No, let's first create schema. Again, like I said, schema is something that contains different table. It's a container that it contains different table. Inside the schema, schema is inside the database. I just want you to note, if you have a pen and Bible, note the process. There's a database. Inside the database, there's a schema. Inside the schema, there are different forms of table in the schema. So I can have one schema and store like 4 tables or 5 tables inside the schema. Do you understand that? So an example is that if I want to save the whole sales transaction, and I have table for the customer details, I have table for the customer transactions, the customer sales, I have table for the customer orders. And I want to save these 3 tables in one place. So I will save the 3 tables inside the schema. So let's create schema, sales transaction. It might not look interesting now, but I want you to, like I said, I like start from the foundation. I like starting from the foundation of things so that you build on a good foundation. You don't just, I can come here and just start, select something from what? Where is it? Why are we selecting from? That's something, if you don't understand the foundation, that's something you will miss. So let's call our schema sales transaction. We want to put all our transaction table inside a schema called sales transaction. Sales. Don't worry, I'm going to take this. I just want to show you something with this. This is still with the introduction class. Next week, I may run through this again. I just want to show you something. So when you're creating in a SQL server, note my word, when you're creating a SQL server, when you're saying create a schema, you name the name of the schema. This is like the name we want to give the schema. We type go. For my SQL, that, like I said, there are different forms of relational database management system. SQL Server is a management system. MySQL is a management system. They have differences in their syntax. So in MySQL, when you want to create a schema, you might not type this go. You don't need to type this go. But for SQL Server, this is how you type it. So for me, I like just focusing on one thing. I'm not a fan of MySQL or Postgres. I've loved to use SQL Server. And sometimes when I see some SQL syntax in MySQL, I just Google search, okay, how can I do this in SQL Server? Because I prefer SQL Server, actually. So we've created a schema called sales transaction. You will see what happened when I run this now. We created a schema called sales transaction. So now under this schema, we want to create a table. Like I said, there's table, the schema, there's table. So let's create a table. Create a table. So it's saying that create table. So what is the name of the table? What is the name of, they want the table to be our sales. Okay, so now this table contains our sales. So then we open a column. We open a bracket column, actually. So look at this. We created a schema, the name of the schema. We created a table, we named the name table. So look at this Excel. I said, let me use Excel too. This is my Excel. let me confirm, when I'm swiping, hope you are seeing is so that I'm not speaking to myself. When I'm swiping my screen, hope you're seeing what I'm swiping to. So I'm now in the Excel interface now. Is that what you are seeing on your screen? Let me confirm that.
Yes.
I'm not getting any feedback, please. Someone should speak to me.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, good one. So now in SQL, this is a table. Look at it. And even in Excel, this is a table. This is a table on its own. So now we want to create this kind of table in SQL. We've written create sales. So these are the headers: customer name, segment, sales rep, state, category, the sales, the quantity, the profit. So these are the header. These are the header here, and this header contains a alphabet. Actually, this contains alphabet. This contains an integer or numeric. This contains a numeric. This contains a numeric. So now let's go on. Okay, so now when you're creating a table, the first thing you do is you write out your headers. Now, our first header is customer name. So when you're writing anything in SQL, any form of a letter, you put them in two column. Two column. That means is a letter, is string, is a string. The normal word is strings. Is a string, is a letter, is not an integer. Integer is numeric or is alphabetical. So we say customer name. Customer name. And if you're lost here, just take your time. Though I would explain some of these things again. Yeah, you know me very well. I love to explain. So now, this is our first column. This is our first column, customer name. And the customer name in SQL, if you're writing this, yes, so we are going to tell SQL, okay, this SQL is customer name. What kind of data type it will be inside this customer name? What type of data? What type of data? Is it an alphabet? Is it an integer? So we know it's an alphabet, which is a strings. So in SQL, for every alphabet or strings, we'll call the data type is called a voucher. A voucher. So we put okay. So it's not saying that what should be what the voucher inside the voucher, we put a number there. They say, okay, how many alphabets should I allow? If I put 1 here, it means that anytime I'm typing any name here, the name will just the only alphabet I can put is just 1 alphabet. So just to make it so we can contain as much alphabet, we just say 50. So he's saying that for this colon, the colon is an alphabet which in SQL is represented as voucher. I want to that, okay, when I'm typing anything under this colon, yeah, I want to type as much as 50 characters. That's what it's called, as much as 50 characters. So if I put 2 here, I can only type 2 characters. If I put 50 here, as much 50 characters. So this is our first column. So don't forget, we are creating this table here, this Excel table. We are creating this Excel table. We are creating this Excel table. Just give me a minute, please. Let me move this out. Okay, yeah. So now, so we are creating
display and overlay that in a faint bar chart. So let's set up our dual axis chart. Let's drag over a subcategory. This time around, we're
sorry about that. Okay, so we've created what we just did now. I'm using Excel to explain what we just did now. We've created this column, customer name, and it's an alphabet. We're making sure that the alphabet will have as much as 50 characters so that we are not limited by the character we can type. So the next column is segment. So let's go again. Let's type this again, segment. Put a comma, enter. Put a colon, segment. The name of the column is segment. I want someone to answer me now. what data type is inside segment? This should be an interactive. What data type is inside segment? Of data is what data type is here inside this segment. I need the feedback, guys. I want you to be interactive.
It's a string alphabets.
Alphabets. Thank you. So now, with also alphabet in SQL is called instead of strings in either Python, is alphabet. The strings also in Excel. In SQL is called voucher. So you can just type voucher. Now we are creating here. As class goes on, we will start the select, which you always see, but you must understand the foundation. That's what I like doing. I just like jumping into things. I like teaching people the foundation. So now this character, okay, how many character do we want to allow? We can say, okay, let's just put everything as 50. If you put one character here, you can only just type one word inside that column. So you have to be careful of as much character you put. So this is what we do for others. For this column, for these sales rep, we quit. So I think I have it already typed here, so we don't waste too much of our time. Okay, let me just get it out and so let me. I have everything typed out, so we don't waste. But like you have an understanding of exactly what we are doing. Let me just copy and paste. Copy. So let's paste it here. Command V. Oh. And go back and copy it again. So I really don't want to type for each of those column. So that's why I'm just advising we just copy and paste, so we don't waste much of our time. Since I believe that you've understood the concept behind it.
Okay, while we were copying and pasting, we're seeing your PPT, not the Excel. However, we understand where this is coming from.
Okay, you are seeing my PPT.
Yeah, it was your PowerPoint we were seeing while we were copying and pasting.
Yes, it was not from my Excel I was copying, but I just wrote it out. So, but the idea is that you understand that what I copied was just the column. So the column for each, you can see when we got to sales, let's go back. When we got to sales, look at what happened when we got to sales. We had sales here, but the data type is integer. Sales is not a voucher, it's not a string, it's an integer. So integer. So you don't need to put, for integers, you don't need to put how many character that needs to be there. You really don't need to put that. Okay, there's an error here because I didn't put comma. So for each of the column you created, you put a comma, you put a comma, you put a comma. So now we've created this table. What we've just did, we've created something like this using an Excel.
Hello, yeah. Sorry. I want to ask, what do you mean by that integer? I came late, sorry.
So integer is a data type. So 1, 2, 3 is an integer.
You mean figure?
No, yes, figure, numerical figures, it's integer. So in Excel, look at Excel, yeah. Look at the sales here. Yeah, these are numerical figures. These are numerical figures. These are alphabetical data type. This is numerical. So in SQL, we call it integer, more like just like in different, it's the same thing, but different names in different platforms. Do you understand?
Sorry, so it doesn't have a limitation like the one we use for Word?
Yeah, it doesn't have a limitation. So it doesn't have a limitation. So if in SQL, when you're creating a table, The only time you need to put numbers for probably the characters is only when you're creating a column for an alphabetical column or a string column. That's where you put how many characters you want. But for integers, you don't need to put the amount of character there. Do you get that?
Thank you.
All right. So now what we've just done in this is just create like a table like this where just an empty table. What we've just done, we've just created something like this. Nothing is inside. Nothing inside is our table. Let me just remove that. So what we've done now, we've just created something like this. So nothing is inside our table. We need to input data into our table, into the table. So this is, look at here. So let's now input data into the table. I hope you're understanding and you're following.
Yes.
All right, good one. It's good to hear that you are following. Okay, so after we've done this, we'll put a semicolon here. We use a semicolon to end it. A semicolon to end it. Now we've done create table sales. What we'll do now is we say insert. If you check my PPT, if you saw my PPT, we said we're going to go about create insert. So now we are going to insert, like I said, what we've done is we've just created this empty table like this. Now we want to insert inside each of these column. That's when we use the insert function in SQL. Insert. Yeah, but Toby said we'll be surprised. I didn't teach this in the last SQL I did. I just went into query immediately. So, but I just felt like insert. So now we are going to insert into sales because we've created a table called sales. So we want to insert into that table, sales. Insert into sales.
You have two intos there.
Is that what?
You have two intos. Insert into.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you for that. Okay. So when you say then you open a bracket. Now, this is how you insert into. This is how you insert into sales. You go. So we open the column, customer name. So for if we list the column we've created, customer name, segment, rep, and state. So you do this for each of the column, states, category, take it a step at a time. Category, sales. And you need to be careful of the uppercase and lowercase. Make sure that the same thing you typed in when you created the column, that's the same thing you're typing when you're trying to insert into the column. Make sure you're not putting you're not typing when you created a table, you didn't use a small letter, while when you're inserting into the table, you're using a capital letter. That would spring up an error. We'll close this. close this, and we'll close this, then we say, okay, now we're saying that, okay, insert into this column. What do you want to insert into this column? You said, we'll not put out the values. So you're saying the values, open bracket. So now we will not insert the values. Let me explain this with Excel for you. So look at this is what we first did. We created this. Now we want to insert the values into this column here. But this is how it works. In Excel, you can just type like this, name, and you type a name, and you go like this. But in SQL, when you're creating in SQL, it doesn't work like that. Command Z, let me just return it back to you. All right. So now when you're working in SQL, you have to insert horizontally. I think this is horizontal, yeah. You have to insert in a row format. So now this is what we'll do. So this is what happens. So for the first record, this is a record for if you know Excel, this is a record. This is actually a record. This is a record, yeah. This is a record of the transaction of this customer. This is a record of the transaction of this customer. This is another record. Every row, this is a row, is a record. Every column is an attribute. This is an attribute of a record. So for each record, this is what's going to happen. So the values now, the first row will be the customer name. Let me just use this example. Let me use this one. Okay, this person here. I already did. Let me just copy and paste for you so that we don't have to go through the long process. Let's take it away there. All right. So this has the error, yeah. I'm trying to check the error. So look at this. So we are inserting this record, customer name. This is a customer name. Segment. This is a segment for this record. Organic. This is organic. The rep is organic. That means that it was just organic sale. The state, Kentucky. The category, furniture. The sales. This is the sales. The quantity, 2. The profit. This is a profit here. Same thing we have in this Excel here. Same thing. Look at what we did here. We just inserted this figure here. This. Everything you see here in row 2. That's what we inserted. So this is what we will do for each of these files. For row 4, we'll do the same thing. So let's go back. Values. Okay. What's the syntax error here?
You didn't put the semicolon, probably. After insert.
Yeah. Just take. So give me a minute, please. Let me just. All right. So no, there's not a semicolon issue. I'm coming. Okay. Let me just check. Let me check here. Check my record here. Okay. So let's just do it. Insert into sales. All right. So let's run this. Let me just run this. And let's see. Let me run this. Let me see the error. So now let's create this schema. You see what happened. Let's see if we'll have any error here. I need to remove. All right, let's run this. Let's see. So there's a syntax error here. Okay, let me just check the syntax error. So one of the things you would you'll most likely run through in Excel is your syntax error values. Okay, yeah, and I know where the. So now this is okay. Look at this. This is a semicolon, but what I did here was an apostrophe. You can see, so you get some of these things sometimes. So let's change some of these things. See where the error is. So that's so just correcting some of the syntax error here. Okay. So also there's an error here. Look at this error here. So we created segments, but we are seeing segment and sales here. So we need to correct this. Again. So let's see the error it will give us. Oops. Let me run this first. Let's see. Okay. Do you have a schema already named? Sales transaction. There's already objects name. Sorry, I need to just check these where the error is coming from. Consumer, okay, consumer name. Give me a few minutes, please. Let me. So sometimes when you're working with SQL, especially when you're creating, you get some of these syntax error, and you get some of the syntax error. So it's just part of it. Values. Okay. So let's do quick schema. Okay, let's use this example. Let's use this example. A few minutes. All right. Okay, so we are going to use another example. I really don't know why I'm having issues with that, but so that we just still the same thing, teaching. So creating a schema, like I told you, one of the things I didn't do was drop table. So an idea is that before you create any table, you assume that table exists before. So what you first try to do, you drop a table, you drop the table. So most times you see, you can drop table if exists runners. So an example is that you want to create a table called, oh, and let's see where the error is. I saw what the last error is. I'm sorry. All right. Yeah. So I will explain what happened the last time. Let me just Ctrl-Z it. Let's do a Ctrl-Z and let me explain. Command-Z. All right. So when I was creating, look at this example. When I was creating this table, I didn't put my schema here. Let's do this again. Sales dot. That's the thing about working in Musical. When you're working with something technical like this, it happens like that. So it is what it is. So insert into, you put the schema name. Let's go on this, let's see. So don't be, the beautiful thing about working in this, don't be scared to keep doing it. If there's an error, you get back at it. Let's just take this out. Let's work with this new example. It happens like that. And let's work with a new example. All right, so let's talk with this example. We created this schema. We drop the table if it exists. So the first thing you must do is we assume that the table might exist, so you drop it. Most of the time when you're creating a table in SQL, is a principle that you drop the table first. So then we create a table. We wrote, the first thing you first do when you're creating a table is the schema you've created. I told you there's a schema, a table is inside the schema. So we use this, we put the schema dot the name of the table we want to create. Like I said, this is the table is runner ID. There's an integer, is an integer. The ID is 1, 2 is an integer. Registration date is a date. Then we closed it, insert into. So we are going to say insert into this colon, like we did for the last time. These are the columns we've created, these 2 columns we've created. I want you to insert into them these figures. Absolutely don't know why the other one is not working, but it is what it is though. So let's run this. Let's just run one so we can see what it looks like. Let's run it down. Let me quit, start again. Absolutely. Really don't know what's happening with my SQL today, with my creation today. Not bad. Let's try other examples. Come in and check for another example to see what we can work with. Okay, let's see this one. So the creation can be tricky because you are working with, let's see. No, not this. Okay, so let's try this example here. Let's take it out. Let's try this example. No, yeah, about this here. Okay. So I'm trying to see. Let's see, create table. Okay. All right. All right. So we did one successfully. Let me just explain what happened. So we created a schema. We created a sales table. The customer ID is a colon. Order ID is a colon. Product ID is a colon. So we inserted into the table, this sales table, almost like same thing we're doing. Customer IDs we inserted into this colon, these values. So this A here is customer ID, is a customer ID. This is an order date, and this is a product ID. That's just the simple way. So let's now, what we can do now is let us retrieve this table, select. So this is more like the common select everything from, we created this table called sales, from sales, from sales, let's see, from sales. Let's see if what we get. Run. All right. So you can see our table here: customer ID A, order date, and product ID. Let me explain. We look at what we put here. This is exactly, we created a table called sales. We had customer ID column, order ID column, which are seen here, product ID column. Then we inserted into them these values. All these values you are seeing here, this is what we inserted into them. So that is how you create table. Sometimes you get some of these errors actually, but it's just the process. I really don't know why that's giving us error. So, but look at our schema here. Look at our schema here. We created Danny data. This is schema we created. So come here, you will see the schema here. Let me just refresh it. All right, you can see the schema here, Danny data. So this is the schema that contains this old data. So inside this schema, I can still I created how many tables here? Note the tables. This is the first table, sales. This is the second table, menu. This is the third table, members. So inside one schema, like I said, you can create many tables inside one schema. Let's query another table. This table we created, let me bold in it. Seems we're not seeing it very well. So let's query another table here. We created a sales table. Let's query select. We'll be going into the select function more very well, but today I just wanted to teach, helping you understand how Excel and SQL interrelate, how you can create a new table in SQL. From next week, the table we are going to be using for this exercise for the next 6 weeks is, we're not going to create it. We are going to import from Excel directly. We're going to import from Excel directly into SQL from Excel file. But I want you to, like I said, the foundation, I want you to be able to, your own self, be able to create a new table. Your own self, create a new table and insert into this table. The second table we created, create table menu. Let's see what we got from menu, what we inserted from menu. Okay, menu. What's happening? Okay. So let's select, you run. You run this. When you run this, you get this. Let's see how we created the table table called menu. Create table menu. The product ID, which is an integer, you can see the product ID, an integer. The product name, which is a string, a voucher. And we said the character we put there is 5. So you can see that what we have here is no more than 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want more characters, it's advisable that you put enough character here so that your data might change. Someone might input a bigger number of character here. If it's bigger than 5, it will signify an error. It won't work. The price is an integer, as you can see here. So insert into menu. You list the product. You list the column header. Then the values you want to. You can see that these values here is the same thing you are giving here. If I add to this thing, let's just add to this way here, and we run it again. Let's add to this here, and you see what happens. Let's just add. Let's add 4. for let's add what should we add? Let's just add let's just add 45. Let's add more to it. 5. Is it 5? So we're trying to test an example of adding more to the tables to see. Let's add as you go on your journey, you would meet so much errors, syntax error, and a lot of errors. So one of the things is you would read the errors, try to figure it out. Okay. Okay, so I know where the error is here. Okay, so now let's run this again. Let's just run this. Create table. Well, it might bring out an error because we already have the schema before. Let's just try it. Let's try it. Let me take this down. So one of the issues you have is when you create a schema, we created a schema that contains all these tables here. This number 1 table. If you want to run it again, it will bring an error that we already have the schema. We can't, let's just go so I can explain to you so that you see what's really happening. Run. Let's see the message. So it's telling we already have a schema called dining data. You don't want to run it again. But let's run this table. Let's just run this table again. Let's see if this ones will run. And let me see. Let's see if it will run. So it's just saying, this is just telling that, oh, we already have this sales table before. One thing about SQL is that if you want to update this table here that you've created, you will use the syntax updates if you want to update them. So what I've just tried to explain is to show you how you can create on SQL, which most times you already see people explain, to just go into this part of select and where you're querying this data. But the first thing you must understand is how can I, if I don't have what's it called? If I don't have a data, probably I don't have an Excel file I can input or something like that. I want to create my own table. I want to create a table in SQL. These are the sequences you'll use. And like I explained in our file, I'm looking for like I explained, the first language is called the DDL, which is the create, alter, drop. So the majority of the class will basically be in the query part, select, and so much of that. So I'm just trying to show you that an understanding of the foundation on how to create table in SQL is also very, very, very necessary. It's also very, very necessary in your journey. And this is how you can create them. The first thing you do is you create a schema. That if you just have one table, you might just want to create a table directly, just create a table. But if you have a lot of table you want to put inside one schema, you have so much of table, you can create a schema, then you create a table. So in your table, the first thing you have to do is you write out your header. I just call this header, like using an Excel format, where you have your header and you write the character. So what kind of data type? This is a data type. If it's a character data type, if it's a string, you write the voucher, and how many characters do you want it to contain? You write the character. If it's a date data type, you write the date, and if it's a numerical data type, you write integer. So these are the names of the header. Now, what do you do when you write the names of the header? You insert into them. So insert into the name of the table you've created. Then what do you want to insert into? The first thing you want to do is you list out the header you've created, just like normal Excel, yeah. Normal Excel, yeah. The first thing we did was we created this column. The second thing we did was we list out the column and we started inputting into it one by one. That's like the Excel idea. So we start inserting into it. So what do we want to insert into this value? So you must note that if you list out, we created 3 columns here, 1, 2, 3. And we are inserting into the 3 columns. If peradventure, when you are putting the values into the column, you mistakenly typed like 4, yeah, let's example, you just typed something there. It will bring out an error because there'll be an error in everything. You can see this, when you see an error in SQL, you can see the red line. It's showing you that you only created 3 columns and you're filling into 4 columns there. That's not right. So you need to correct that. So as much as how many columns you've created, you're saying insert into sales. This is a column. I want you to insert A into customer ID. I want you to insert this date into order date. I want you to insert this. I want you to insert this one into this. That's exactly what you're doing. You come to the second row, like as if you're inputting in Excel. The second row, this one inside this one inside this one inside this one. That's how you create in SQL. Majority of the times, as an analyst, you'll not be the one doing this. Absolutely, because your data is already in the cloud. What you just need to do is just query the data and analyze it, which we are going to be building on coming next week. But I want you to understand the foundational knowledge, which is very key. You must understand so when you hear a schema, your mind knows that a schema is inside a database, and inside a schema, there are different forms of table in a schema. That gives you an idea. So when you hear a relational, what is a relational database? A relational database is a database that is relational, is connected. That means each table in those data are connected with one column or the other. So let me show you an example. Look at this sales table. This. Look at this table: customer ID, order date, product ID. Look at menu. I want to see, look, this is a table in SQL. This is a table you can see here. So this is another table, menu. So let's see. Is there any connection between these sales? Is there any connection between this sales table and the menu table? Can someone tell me? Is there any connection between this table? If I want to connect these 2 tables together, is there anything I can use to connect them? This sales table has customer ID, order date, and product ID. The menu has product ID, customer name, and price. Can someone help me? Is there any connection between these 2 tables?
It's a product ID.
Yes, exactly. So that's why it's called relational. That means that each of the table, there's something that connects them together. It's called relational. So when you hear what is called relational database, you understand that it entails is a relational database that is connected. Each table is connected. When you hear non-relational database, it shows that each of the tables are different. They are not connected. That's non-relational database, and we call that also NoSQL. So when you hear something called what's it called? I mentioned it. Data definition language, DDL in SQL those are the language you use to create. You have your creation, alter. If you want to alter a table, you have drop. If you want to drop a table, the drop means that you are deleting a table. That's just it. Is that insert into a table? We did insert. If you want to update, the same thing you did an update. An example is that, let's show an example here. Let's show an example here. Like I inserted into this table, insert into menu or something like that. I can also create updates. I can also create an update where I'm updating a table with values. Let's try it out. I hope it doesn't spring the error. Update menu. So let's see. Let's just see if that will work. Command B. So update. So menu. Let me see. Let's see. Like I said, most of these things you most likely not be the one doing it because your data, you rarely create any data for a company. The company has the data, but your idea of it is key for you to understand how this thing works. Let's see. Check your understanding of it is very, very key. So I think we just are going to have an error. Yep, an error. So I would try to fix this in the coming class, the first class, and even some of the data we want to get, because I want us to, as we continue in our classes, I want us to use an integration of Excel and SQL so that you can understand. So we'll be using, this is data we are going to be using as time goes on. And so some of the errors we are seeing, I'm going to fix that in the next class. I don't want to just waste our time. So it's just to show you that if, as a technical person working with technical tools, you would hit so many errors where you need to fix. So it doesn't mean that you are not good or there's an issue with you. It just means that that's how technical things are. You just need to check the errors, go back, fix it, and get better at it. Go back, fix it, and get better at it. So this is a reality of a normal person's, a normal data analyst life, where you're writing a query, you're seeing errors. You go back at it again, you go to Google, and I can show you, I can share with you some of my notes. I was working on a SQL language, and let me just share with you, and you see where I even attach some of the link that I used to solve the problem. Let me show you. That's just the beauty of being a technical person. You would keep. Come in, let me see if I can show you. So, all right, let me just share the screen with you. So you can see that there's absolutely nothing wrong if you, all right, so let me share this is the screen with you. So you can see my screen. You can see that this site, I learned how to do string splits, string aggregation. I put the link here so that the next time, these are SQL, sometimes these are SQL. The next time I'm working towards this thing and I encounter these issues again, I can always go back to this link, look at the link here, and I go to what I learned here. I go to what I learned here also, what I learned here. I can always go back to this link and learn how to do. So as a technical person, you hit so much errors, just learn how to learn. That's the thing you learn. I think I also have some of these things here also, where I attach the link to some of the problem I solved. So what have we done today? What have we learned today? We've learned so much. We've learned the understanding of SQL. Why do you need to learn it? You need to learn it because for every company you're going to work with, they're going to keep their data in the database. And for you to be able to for you to be able to function in that company as an analyst, data, financial, any form of analyst at all, you need to have the skills of being able to query the data from their server and analyze the data. So we're not talking about, so what management system are we going to use to query those things? We use the language called SQL, but there must be a management system. When I said, okay, we have different form of management system. We have Postgre, we have MySQL, we have SQL Server, we have Oracle. So for this class, we're going to use SQL Server to query those things. And we also learned what are the sub-languages. We talked about create, we used create, and we used alter, drop, insert. Some of these things I'm going to go deep into it next week. I think the first 30 minutes, some of the errors we encounter today, I'm going to solve them. The first 30 minutes, we would run through this again. Then we'll now go to the query part, which is the data, which is what you see, select, and the rest, what you see outside. But I built the foundation for you to understand that. Why do you need it? And what are the core foundation you must understand? Database, schema, and tables. Different tables can be inside a schema, and different schema can be inside a database. Just have that understanding. I think that's the end of the class today, just an introductory class. And from next week, we get into it. And what I'm very sure of is that we might not, at the end of the class, you should be able to handle every form of basic SQL question. And we are going to do an example. I did an example here. I did a, let me see if I can share that with you also. I did there's something called a site called, let me see if I have it here. I think we should do that also. By the end of the class, we'll go to a site and we run it's an interview site where you learn life SQL, problem statements. Let me see, okay. I'll share this with you. It's like I went to the site, they give you a case study, and I think at the end of the class, let me share my screen this with you. So just to show you how it should not just be learn. And one of the things for those who join my Excel class, you know that I'm more of a practical person. I just want to, okay, come and learn SQL and go. No, we can't. Okay, let me share the screen with you. So this is Anchor Rank is a website. They give you a case study. This is a case study, if you can see my screen. So this is a question. And you see, these are some of the things. You can say, I even attach some resources there. So just to learn resources there, to okay, I learned from these resources to solve this problem. So by the end of, okay, why am I here? I click on the link, right? So before the end of the class, we'll go to this. You can see the resources I linked here. The resources I linked here. So I'll link those resources for me to, okay, I use these resources to solve this problem. So let me just go back. Anytime I have issues with it, I can always go back to it. Basic join and there. So before the end of the class, I think in the 4th week, after we learned, I believe 2nd, 3rd week, we'll learn something. The 4th week, we'll go to the site, we'll solve real case problem. Okay, this is a problem. How do we solve it? What is the methodology? I like methodology a lot. How do I solve this kind of problem? What is my thinking pattern? Okay, do I use a CTE, which I really don't think we'll get to, but we can get to. Do I use a subquery or a CTE? Do I know how to use ranking and the rest, where or something like that? So that will be going to next week. But I'm just trying to show you that it's not just theoretical. We'll go to websites that shows problem of interview problems, SQL interview problems, and we'll try to solve the problem, the basic problem. And I expect that before the end of the class, at the end of the class, I expect that you'll be able to solve every basic SQL problem. You can see that sorry about that. You can also see that it's a learning process. You can say how there's an issue, I go and solve it, check the link, put the link there. Okay, this is the link I used to solve it, and go on like that. So that is what we are going to be doing for the next. We have another 5 weeks with us, and it's going to be an exclusive class. You're going to learn so much how to solve this kind of problem. This one is just how to solve this kind of problems and tools you can use to solve them. These are problems, and I have so much of these problems here. We would have a very wonderful time in class. So for you guys who are new to SQL, I don't know anything about it. Now you should know something. You should know why you need to learn it. You should know you should know what a database is. I don't know anything about it. You should know what a database. You should know how what a database management system is. is just like a platform for you to able to query. So if you query the data in your company's what's it called? In your company's database, the management system is where you will see it, like the tools we are using. The tools we are using is mine is Microsoft SQL Server. This is tools we are using. So an example is that this can be connected to my company's SQL server, where I'll just say select from. I'll just query all the old data actually. So this is a relational database management system. So now you understand those basic things. Then we're not going into the nitty-gritty in the next class. So thank you for coming to class today. We didn't use up to 2 hours today. And next week also, next week we should be maximizing our time and learning very well. So the first few minutes of next week will solve our problem. Some of the errors we are getting, we'll clear those out and we'll get to it. Thank you for coming to this class. Do enjoy the rest of your week. I'll hand over back to Bertobi.
Okay, thank you so much, Romano, for this awesome class. I know a lot of us, a lot has been said. Please confirm you can hear me. So we're wrapping up in just a few minutes. Please, someone should confirm you can hear my voice. Sekinat, you're welcome.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Sunday. So, you know, while our facilitator was teaching earlier and he was trying to say, yeah, he needs to touch this so you guys can understand the foundation and all. And how will I put it now? I'm kind of excited for you because really what he has taught you, if you have to look at it literally, it's not something as a data analyst, your focus should actually, because most of the companies you would work in, they already have a data warehouse that you are just to come and query. But he has given you an add-in, like an additional skill set that mostly belongs to data engineers, you know, because it might not be your responsibility to build a data warehouse for organizations, like, you know, bring data from their raw source and, you know, arrange it in a whichever platform, as he has explained, whether the Microsoft or the Postgre or whichever one you want to use to warehouse a data, you know, arrange it for whoever want to use it to analyze. That might not be your responsibility, but part of what those guys does, mostly engineers, they use Python, which you already explained, you know, and some of them, mostly what they do is just what he has explained to you tonight. Because I was just thinking, imagine if that data has about 100,000 rows, you know, maybe a company that's operated using Excel all their lives, they now want to migrate into a cloud platform and they need all their data for the past 10 years to move there. Someone will have to do that job. Some engineers will have to come and warehouse all those data so that in future, someone that joins the company as an analyst can query 5 years ago and run a trend analysis using whatever they have, or probably connect it to a Power BI platform where they can easily run those data to see what the company has been for some years. But you know, this data is coming from a manual hand of just a normal Excel, and then we want to make it cloud to make it easy for anybody to analyze. So it's a lot of work, and that's why, you know, when those errors are happening, they are just a normal thing. That's the sincere truth. Even in Excel, at times you do error. I remember I was trying to build a model sometimes ago, and of course, I'm a Christian. I had to pray. That was how serious it was, you know. When you've tried something and you are just hitting a roadblock, you tried, it's not going through. You just have to pause, think, what's happening? Go back, check where you started from. And at the end of the day, you definitely scale through. So it's a normal thing. And just as I said, I'm not a data analyst as such. I'm an FP&A analyst. So I'm a financial planner. However, we do similar things together. So, but he understands the game better, and he has just, you know, communicated the truth to us. So I would just encourage us to maximize this class. Next week will not be open to everyone. Our existing students, of course, you have your access. But for you that probably joined to observe what is happening here, we encourage you to make payment. This link will be shared in the group for us to watch again. So pay attention, watch again. And we have a SQL library already. So you have a lot of books there. You can go into those books, read them. Of course, these are books that are from different authors, from different ends. Some of them touch MySQL, SQL Server and all that. So check the one you have interest. Just look at it. Aside from what you've learned today, go in there and see what other skill you can get ahead of next class, so that whenever it comes to class, at least you have questions. Oh, I observed this. Can you explain particularly those points is making that connects to some of the things you've read on your own? So that's how to fast track this learning. Even this SQL that we've learned today, I personally have learned a lot from what he has taught us tonight, because I patiently look at it. Excel, I had no issue. Most of the Excel classes, I was not paying attention. But this one, I know there are some areas I don't have much strength. Amazingly, this part he taught tonight, I don't think I have much of the idea. All I know is there's an existing data. I know how to run queries to extract whatever data I need. But I've not really thought of how do those guys that make this thing, how did they came about pushing data into this platform? And that is what he has explained tonight briefly. It's more deeper than this. So you can also maximize that. You can learn it and pay attention. 6 weeks is packed, is loaded, but it's not free. Today is free, so you can have a bite. A subsequent class is not free. So make your payments, get committed, and learn this skill. I remember earlier in the day, someone was sharing with me an opportunity she couldn't get, because of this skill. And I can tell you this skill is in demand. So whether remote jobs, local jobs, customer care, HR, accountant, whichever role you are going to now, a lot of companies have stepped up into cloud-based, because that's where the world is going. A lot of companies have stepped up their storage. So no company, my company now, you can't see any cabinet in my office. You don't keep anything, paper, anything. In fact, only the team that prints is probably the HR department, because they needed to keep some physical files of employee data. That's all. Nobody keeps all those big black files and all that anymore in finance or any other department. Everybody's just laptop. Why? Because a lot of our data are housed in the cloud. And if you don't have the language to access it, then there's no need employing you. So that's why this skill is key. And amazingly, after this, you still have subsequent skills. You still have subsequent skills, which is Power BI is the one coming after this. After Power BI, we take you through Tableau, and then we enter Python, which is another major language. Our language was scheduled for November, December, but we are scrapping that off this year. That will roll into 2024 by the grace of God. So we still have 3 to learn for the rest of the year. That will be like a pack of knowledge for you that want to journey in any form of analysis, whether data, business, whatever analysis. You always work with these 2 languages and then all of these tools. There are many of them, but these are like the key 5, the fantastic 5 you need to scale in any field you find yourself as an analyst. So please do not joke with it. We have choice facilitators for subsequent editions. But amazingly, Emmanuel has been the one in charge of Excel and SQL. You have someone prepared for Power BI. She's warming up, and don't miss that class. Also, Tableau will be a she. She's also warming up. Don't miss that class. And Python, I'm likely to be the one to take you that, or probably I get a co-analyst to help with that class, because of course, this one that we've learned today is small. Python is more complex than this. So I just want to encourage us to maximize this, keep learning, keep growing, keep being your best, and keep scaling. And beyond learning, we are all professionals in the group, the community. If you're not there, you can join. We have about 10 professionals there. So if you have any issue whatsoever, any career advice, mentorship, reach out to us. So we are here beyond just teaching us, want to help you. So you have an interview tomorrow and they've sent you a 1-hour exercise or a glance, you have an idea of what the exercise will be, and you need someone to quickly give you an input. Reach out. I've done interviews before where they'll just send you an Excel template. I need to answer in 1 hour and return. So you might need someone to quickly guide you at that point in time, or probably you need some preparation or someone that's give you an heads up into area where, the assessment will come from and it's not clear. You might not have time to go to YouTube to start watching videos. Reach out. That's why we have a community. So don't like keep things to yourself in this regard. It's our desire that tomorrow, somewhere here, we get a job with a foreign company, a multinational, as an analyst, and you will look back and say, yeah, this was the people, these were the people that prepared me for this opportunity. This was the platform I joined that equipped me for this opportunity. That's the joy. That's the joy. And just to land, I remember last year when we were planning to launch AMG idea. So we did 3 months pilots last year. We made all trainings free for everyone. So the few people that joined last year, I remember a particular that day I was teaching the class on Power Query, which we also did during the last Excel class. And one of my old-time friend, we did ICANN together, just came into that class and he paid attention, asked a few questions. Amazingly, I never knew he had an interview in a few days' time. And when he got to that interview, the question they asked him was on Power Query. In fact, that was one of the major questions. And prior to that class, he knew nothing about Power Query because a lot of us know Excel, but we don't go into some of these deeper aspects of Power Query, Power Pivot, and the likes. So he never knew, but it was that class he got some idea on how Power Query works as an add-in in Excel and all that. And that was what he said during the interview. And those guys that interviewed him were excited, and they said they would get back to him. Of course, because he's not my regular person, we've not really been in touch since then. Why I believe strongly would have gotten that offer because he was so excited. That was the only first encounter he had. So you don't know, maybe in 2-3 months' time, you go for an interview, and what Relational will teach you during these 6 weeks is what will save you, save the opportunity for you or land you that dream job you are looking out for. So I just want to appreciate us for joining, and I wish us all the best. You get the recording to this class for free. We share it across all our groups. Go back, watch it again, listen to it again, prepare your questions, but do not miss next class. That's when the real analysis for SQL will start. Don't miss it. And if you have any question, please feel free to reach out to me. You can DM me. I share myself and Amin. Amin is no longer here. We are the admin actively on the general community. So you can always DM any of us for any information you need from time to time. Thank you so much for joining. Of course, the class is meant to end by 8 o'clock, but tonight we end a bit earlier, just about 10 minutes earlier, so we can all go and prepare for tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow is a public holiday, both in Nigeria and in the UK. So our diaspora participants enjoy your holiday as well, and we that are local enjoy your holiday as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Do have a pleasant night rest, and much appreciation to our facilitator as well. Thank you. We look forward to more impactful session in subsequent classes. Thank you, everyone.